Hello and welcome to our next lesson. Today's topic is paragraphs and how to format them with CSS. I'll show you some new CSS properties and advise you on how to use the ones you're already familiar with. I have prepared a document with 3 paragraphs on the City of Sydney. Again, our HTML document is linked with a CSS file with which we'll learn about paragraph formatting. In many documents, it's common for a paragraph to start with an indented line. We can make use of the TEXT-INDENT property to achieve this. Text indentation may be specified in absolute units, that is, in pixels. If we use absolute indentation, the indentation will be the exact 10 pixels that we specified, no matter what the window size is. Now I'll try resizing the window to be smaller, and as you can see, the indentation remained unchanged. Next, we can specify relative indentation, which is in percentage points. In this case, indentation will change proportionately to the browser window size. You see that reducing the size of the window will result in a smaller indentation. I'll leave it to 3%. We can also change spacing between words in a paragraph. This is where we use the word spacing property, followed by the size of the desired space in pixels. I'll start by specifying 10px to make the change easy to spot. In the browser, we can see how the words have moved apart. 10 pixels are way too many, so I'll reduce the spacing to half that. Now I'll just check how the spacing has changed. That's better. Next, I'll show you the letter spacing property, which specifies the spacing between individual letters. I'll set its value to 2 pixels and review the result. As you can see, now my letters are also spaced apart. We can also modify the height of a line using the line height property. If I specify it as a number, let's say 2 for example, it will be understood as a line multiplier. Now my lines have become twice as high, which means that the spacing is just as large as the text. I can also specify the height in absolute terms, that is, pixels, or relatively in percentage points. I'm going to go with 110%. This value will make our line spacing 10% of the text height. We'll leave it like that. I'm also going to try changing alignment with the text align property. The default value is set to left. It's also possible to have the text aligned to the right. I'll have the browser display the change, and there we go. The text is now aligned to the right. Another possibility is to center the text. The alignment looks approximately like this. The last alignment option is justification, specified by the justify value. I really like this one, and so I'll leave it like that. CSS allows us to specify different formatting for the first line of a paragraph. This is what the first line pseudo-class is for. The pseudo-class is followed by a colon. I would like to display the first line in boldface, and so I'll set the font weight property to bold. As you can see yourself, the first line of each paragraph is now printed in boldface. So far, we've been concerned with formatting text within a paragraph. Now we're going to learn how to work with the entire paragraph elements. First, I'll show you how to change spacing between paragraphs. This is set by the margin property. Because I want to modify the spacing of the bottom part of the text, I'll add the word bottom to the name of the property. We'll specify our desired margin in pixels. I'll go with 40 pixels, and as you can see, the spacing between the paragraphs has become larger. We can also specify a height and a width. I'll set the width to 300 pixels, and to make matters simpler, the height is also going to be 300 pixels. The paragraphs have now taken the shape of neat-looking columns. I'm also going to set a background color using the background property. I'd like a silver background, so I'll type in silver. A box sized 300 by 300 pixels has shown up around the text. I don't really like how close the text is to the border of the box, though. We can specify how distant the text will be from the border using the padding property. I'll set it to 8px. Let's review how the padding appears in the browser. Now that we have such neat-looking columns, we can place them next to each other. Before we do that, I'll set the bottom padding to 0px, which should make the text easier to work with. To make the example clearer, I'll maximize the browser. I want to move the P2 paragraph to the same level as the P1 paragraph. I'll do this by assigning a negative value to the margin top property to the P2 element. This property determines the top margin, but exactly how much do we need to move it? Let's do the math. The height of the column is 300 pixels. We also have to include the padding, which is 8 pixels at the top and 8 pixels at the bottom. This gives us a total of 316 pixels. This value will move our paragraph to the top, but we also want to move it to the right. Again, we see that the width is equal to 316 pixels. We take this width and add the padding twice. We'd also like some space between the columns, so I'll set the margin left property to 320 pixels. I'll get back to the CSS file and add the margin top property to the P2 element. I have to write a negative value to move the paragraph to the top. So that's minus 316 pixels to move the paragraph to the top. Next, set the margin left property to 320 pixels to move the paragraph to the right. I'll refresh the page and we'll see that the second paragraph has moved next to the first one. I'm going to do the same thing with paragraph P3. The height remains the same, but the left margin has to be twice its original size, as it has to move behind the two paragraphs. When we view the result in the browser, it looks like this. And this has been the last part of today's lesson. I will be looking forward to seeing you the next time.